this is really important because, I wrote a book back in the day saying that I lost everything in 08, 09. I realized my business owned me, right? So I wrote this book called Escape the Owner Prison. And I'm all about that, like what you're talking about. How do you
That's
get
awesome.
how do you get these businesses to run themselves? How do I go from my 60, 80 hours a week to like 10?
Richard, no. As I say, we've got a lot of companies where we've got people installed and a lot of stuff. But I actually have developed a way where what we call self-managing businesses. And now actually I love to help other business guys kind of run that. It's part of our, for me, I'm in this phase already where we're thinking about legacy. How do you set up yourself, your family, and your business kind of for legacy purposes?
Welcome to the Sharpen the Spear podcast, where we help home service pros cut through the noise, sharpen their business tools, and reclaim the profit, freedom, and impact they've been missing. I'm your host, Richard Walsh, Profit Freedom Coach, and I'm here to help you stop grinding and start growing. Let's sharpen the spear. And we are back on STS Sharpen the Spear podcast with another incredible guest. I just keep them coming. I got Cris Auditore Zimmerman with us. And Cris, as we always do on STS, no one knows Cris better than Cris. Cris, give us some backstory. Bring us up to speed. I am really looking forward to this conversation. So let's get going.
Thanks so much for having me, Richard. Happy to give you a little bit of my background. So I'm originally from Germany, Germany and South Africa. My family is purely German, but then the story is that after the Second World War, my grandfather actually migrated to the south of Africa, South Africa. That's where I met my grandmother, and that's where they started a family. So my mom was born in South Africa, but later on I moved back to Germany. But I spent my whole childhood going up and down between Germany and South Africa, and that's why I'm not the typical German here, Richard, which I just need to set the stage right, because some of these Germans are just way too boring and too much on the engineering side and not creative enough and boring. And so anyhow, that's just kind of the back family story.
That's awesome. I've had a few German guests, but I have pointed to the engineering aspect as a benefit to their creativity and the things they do, in business and everything else. So you got kind of the best of both worlds. So that's why this is going to be a great conversation.
I've got this international exposure, and I think that's what I'm actually most proud of is that if you kind of grow up traveling a lot as a child. So I spent my my childhood growing up in the bush of Africa. So in small airplanes, visiting all kinds of fun countries. I think I've traveled to over 100 countries in my lifetime already. So specifically at the beginning of my teenage years, early adulthood, I love to travel and explore new countries. Actually, this has, in a sense, transferred over to my entrepreneurial life. I just love to explore and create and learn, and that's been part of my life.
Yeah, so let's get into that part on the entrepreneurial side. So just let's go a little deeper on that. It kind of led to your entrepreneurial, I'll call it a bent, something we want to do. Is that because of what you're exposed to being in different countries, or was it you saw opportunity and that's what kind of got you, hey, I could do this and this?
Yeah. So I grew up in a family of business. So my dad was running all kinds of companies all over. We had a jewelry factory in Thailand. He had a salmon fabric in the Middle East. He was doing business in Italy. So I grew up kind of with my MBA education around dinner table conversations. So that was number one. And so I've never seen my parents have a boring, normal job, 9 to 5, didn't they? And always also on family vacation, there was always business stuff happening. So that's one aspect. The other one is that when I was 18, literally the day I graduated from high school, I boarded a plane to go to Nairobi, Kenya, East Africa, to work with my uncle on a business project. He was building 11 townhouses and an office complex in Nairobi. And I basically said, Uncle, let me be, kind of an intern. I want to see Africa. I want to get into business. Later on, I studied law. So technically, I'm a German lawyer by training and background. But I really wanted to explore entrepreneurship and learn. And it was a funny exercise. After a week of my uncle observing me kind of on this construction site with about 150 workers, he said, Cris, I love your spirit. I love your energy. I'm going to hand you this whole project. You're going to be the project manager for this project. So literally for the next almost 9 months, he was in South Africa. I was in Kenya, but we were kind of on the phone. Sometimes he would come and travel and visit. but I oversaw a building project, and I was 18 years old, and I had over 150 people working for me. And it was so invigorating. It was giving me so much energy that later on we started to be setting up a bunch of other companies together. But that was kind of my head start into business.
That is quite an opportunity. I mean, that really is. And I want to tell you, because I know project management, okay, like to be able to do that at that age, that many people, that size of a project is pretty impressive.
Well, so, there was a lot of stuff that went wrong during that time. I got money stolen from me. I had my car being stoned in a riot downtown Nairobi. One time we had a riot on the construction site, and I had to call in the police and army to kind of clear the site. We had to fire everyone, rehire them. My uncle needed to save my ass a few times along the way.
Okay, good. I like to hear that. Baptism by fire. I like that.
But that's
like literal fire. Okay. That's good. But that's, but it's funny. And here's the thing about the entrepreneurial spirit, I think, is you persisted through that, right? Obviously you completed the project. I take it.
Yes.
It was 9 months. You got it done. So, but then you continued. So let's go the next thing. Okay. Now you're 18, maybe you're 19. What was next?
Well, so I got back to Germany, started studying law at Frankfurt University. And really, I never wanted to be a lawyer because I never just wanted to have, a secretary and lots of paper in front of me. So I've always wanted to just be an entrepreneur. I started a catering business. I opened up a kitchen in Frankfurt. We started catering to a bunch of office buildings. I opened up some shops at Frankfurt Airport. By the time I graduated from law school, I had like 70 people employed, 10 cars, and all kinds of stuff that we were managing. That was one side. The other side was that my uncle, actually from South Africa, he wanted to invest in Germany in real estate. And so to make a long story short, I raised my hand and said, Uncle, let me take care of business. I'll be, again, the guy who kind of taking care of the project. And so I bought my first 25 apartments downtown Frankfurt while I was still studying. Kind of these two realms kind of got me started with lots of people, money, banks, and projects.
Wow. Yeah, you're not afraid to get some stuff done. If you're going to school, you're going to university, you're starting a catering business, a food delivery business, which I've done the food industry long ago. You can have it.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's a terrible business. I told people it's a terrible, I had a lot of money, well, not a lot of money, but I had money come in, I had money go out. And every month my bank account just looked like a robber had come in and taken all my money. It's a terrible business. It's a lot of people management. Later on, I opened up some coffee shops. I actually own some coffee shops and restaurants as well. I've never made any money on these bloody businesses. You know what really revealed that, Cris, was COVID. You saw what happens to the restaurant business when you can't. I had a bunch of coffee shops during that time. It was terrible. Yeah. Yeah. It just, here in the U.S., 150,000 went out forever. Stuff that had been there for a generation or two. 100%. 30, 40 years. In Germany, we had a lockdown of about a year during the pandemic, and how do you sustain a business? Yeah, especially the food business, because that's a whole nother animal. So wow, good for you. Yeah, but what I'm saying is I'm just kind of in my mind, I'm doing the workload math. Okay, you got all this stuff going. You're going to school. So, hey, uncle, yeah, let me go get some real estate for you, and I'll run that too. So you're ambitious. I think this is the right word I'm looking for, which is really great. How did you find? You already, again, you're still probably in your early 20s, I assume, right? 20, 21 at this time. You had done the project management at 18 with townhouses and the office complex down in Nairobi. How did you find the ability to keep all of this organized and still grow business, do the school? I don't even like the word time management, but how do you manage yourself in this time? It's just interesting to me. There's so much going on at one time. Yeah, well, definitely. That's a good question. I actually have almost like a burnout story that I'm happy to tell you about as well, because I didn't know how to all manage it. But I was very disciplined on my studies, in the sense that in Germany, studying law basically you have to study for a bunch of years, and then you take this final exam. In the US, it's called the bar exam. So in Germany, it's also a state exam. So in a sense, I knew that at the end, there's an exam, and actually nothing counts except what happens during during this final exam. So literally, after the first semester of me going to the classes, I basically felt like I don't want to go to any classes anymore, because either the professor is too quick or he's too slow, but he's never at my speed. And, you're wasting a lot of time on travel. So, to make a long story short, I literally went to the library every day for the opening hours of the library. And I just did self-study. And I graduated the fastest ever to graduate from law school in Frankfurt, Germany, because I went so quick, because I didn't do all the other nonsense that all the other students did. I just went straight for the kill, because I know you like kind of the war analogy here. I went for the kill. I just knew the only thing that counts at the end is my state exam, so I'm just going to go straight for it. In Germany, they also take all kinds of extra classes to kind of get you ready for that. I just, from day one, I basically studied for that exam. That's why I was the fastest guy to ever do that. So that being said, on the one side, and the other side is, I started, managing business. Yeah.
It's, I love it, because that is, you're 100% entrepreneur. Okay. Even the law degree you take, like we do in business, that's all waste. Okay. That's all whatever, right? We're into, they'll get to the thing. Our conversations are shorter. We understand the direct path. We'll take it. We'll sacrifice this or that and make that happen. I couldn't even go through college. Like, I stood in line, Cris, and I had my little schedule on my check, and I'm walking up to the counter to sign up. And I was looking around and I'm like, yeah, there's no way I'm making it here. I went and joined the Marine Corps. Okay. So I ripped up my stuff, threw it in the trash can, and left the building, never to return. I'm like, nope. So when the Marine Corps got out, started doing business, working, I just never kind of went that direction, cause I couldn't even know what you did. Even I just, the environment for me, I was not a book learner. I barely graduated high school, and stuff like that, but everyone's telling you to do things. And I'm like, I think I was born a contrarian. So I kind of, whenever anyone told me to do this, I kind of saw, I think I'll do that. I think I'll go the other direction, so I'm not a herd guy. But yeah, that's awesome. That's pretty amazing. Actually, you got through
Richard, I can fully identify with that. I mean, that probably is the entrepreneurial bug, that, you have to kind of think a little different. You have to go a different way, and obstacles are really there to be conquered and kind of, but since I mentioned it, actually, there's a story of a couple of years after I graduated, and I was running all kinds of business where really, literally, I hit a wall from one day to the next, because I just had too much stuff going on, and it was quite embarrassing. I had also married already by then, so I got married when I was 20. Because also, again, I'm a deal guy. I saw a great deal, a great woman on the market, and I just closed the deal. Anyhow, so I was also got married early, but then I hit a wall a couple of years after my graduation, and it was so embarrassing. My parents actually pulled the plug for me. They took away my computer, they took away my phone, and they bought me a one-way ticket to the United States of America to go and deplug, no communication. And I flew to New York City, and I went to Barnes and Noble, and I started reading books, and I traveled around the East Coast for a few weeks, visiting a few friends that we had, and literally piecing myself back together. I didn't read any business books because they all got me so overexcited. I read kind of on contemplation and philosophy and religion to kind of calm my spirit down, but I literally had a burnout. It took me a few weeks to kind of get back on track.
Well, okay. So here's my outside observation of that. Okay. First of all, here's a big takeaway. Like, you were doing an awful lot. You're doing an awful lot. Then you burned out. So I just want people to understand capacity. Everyone's got a different capacity, right? Like I may have cracked doing half of what you were doing, right? Or I could do twice as much and then crack, right? But everyone's got their point. So I think, again, on that, you did quite a bit before you hit that, what you call burnout, and we got to reset. But at the same time, knowing that you need to reset, or having your parents intervene like they did, which is really cool. You got some pretty decent parents, my man, to be able to see that and do that, But then you going, actually taking the advice, going, but then saying it took a few weeks and then you're okay again. Okay, that's a rapid recovery. Okay, so
Yeah, I mean, I know when so I use the word burnout quite lightly because I know some people who hit a burnout, basically, you have to go to a clinic and, kind of be gone for a couple of years or something. That was not my case, but it was still a wake up call for me. And actually, I've got this story where one of the people that my parents recommended me visiting was a pastor in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And I ended up on his couch and he told me about kind of the principle of the Sabbath and how you need to, rest. God created the world in 6 days and one day you need to rest. And I'd never heard about that, but he instilled that in me anyhow. And I actually credit a lot of my energy that I have nowadays to me actually kind of hitting that wall early on. And now having installed some basic rhythms, and one of them is actually one day a week, I drop everything, like no phone calls, no communication, no travel, like nothing. To just kind of, become human again. I remember him telling me, saying, God created us as human beings, not as human doings. Now, I'm a doer, and I've always been a doer, but it was actually quite good for me to kind of get that lesson early on in my life.
It took me a long time too, Chris. I wouldn't take a vacation. I got work, I got things to do. I'm the doer. Like a friend forced me to go on a vacation. So we're going down to Cabo San Lucas. I got a condo on the beach. I'm like, that's like a whole week. So I went with him. And by day like 4, I'm like, well, this is kind of nice. We're sea kayaking, we're scuba, we're golfing, whatever. And then by day 7, I'm like, can we check out late? I go, I don't want to, I was not looking forward to going back, but did that a couple of years. And he really taught me that you need that recharge time. He ran his business so well. He'd go there for a week and just stay an extra week, sometimes 3 weeks, and he'd come back. I'm like, well, I want to be like that. Like he can stay or not stay.
Yeah, I actually, my story is now that 4 years ago, we moved to an island. So I actually live on a Spanish island by now, my friend. So
Azores? Are you in the Azores? Where are you at?
I live in Mallorca, Spain, which is a Spanish island in the Balears. I have a whole bunch of companies all over, and we've got a family office outside of Frankfurt. So we do a lot of stuff. And I'm not retired. I'm not in the sense like I'm at the beach every day or just on the golf course. I do all kinds of stuff. But literally, we have integrated or found a way for us to play on an island here, and for me to kind of piece myself back together on a regular basis, just to enjoy some fun stuff.
This is really important because I wrote a book back in the day, saying that I lost everything in 08, 09. I realized my business owned me, right? So I wrote this book called Escape the Owner Prison. And I'm all about that, like what you're talking about. How do you get this? How do you get these businesses to run themselves? How do I go from my 60, 80 hours a week to like 10?
Richard, no. I actually, as I say, we've got a lot of companies where we've got people installed and a lot of stuff, but I actually have developed a way where what we call self-managing businesses. And now actually I love to help other business guys kind of on that. It's part of our, for me, I'm in this phase already where we're thinking about legacy. How do you set up yourself, your family, your business kind of for legacy purposes? And so one of my greatest joys now is to help actually entrepreneurs who are kicking and screaming to set up their company in the way that it's self-managing. Now, it still needs leadership. So it's not like, it's just gone. You just sell it and you do an exit, but you keep the company, but you set it up in a way where it's actually self-managing. And we've developed some stuff around it just to be walking alongside entrepreneurs who want to do that. Yeah. So it's a big passion of mine because I've got a whole bunch of those.
I love it, Chris. Like we're aligned in a lot of things. Okay. That being one of those that's like my greatest joy is turning these business owners into like giving a business they don't have to be there, right? The same principle, because I think of it as I'm saving their families.
Yes.
Because they're there, they can't see their kids grow up. They're this out, yeah. And I was like, if I can do that, that's what it's for. And I've had, clients' wives like say, hey, listen, man, we just spent 2 weeks on the beach with all 5 of the kids, and he was never on the phone. Totally present. He goes, I never thought that was going to be possible. 8 years doing this business, never thought. And I'm like,
I compliment you for that. That's tremendous.
Yeah, for me, I'm like, that's why I do it.
That's
That's
awesome.
it for that. That's worth, doesn't matter how much, whatever, but that, because people can get a hold of that, Cris, and this is what you do and what you've done. Like if they can get a hold of that, because people think it's all or nothing. They don't get the balance. They don't understand how to build it, right? So that they can have like what you have, or what I'm doing. Like they don't understand that. So
Well, I call it almost like, I know on the internet and even there's this whole wave on passive income. And a lot of guys try to create what they call passive income. I actually call this passive business. So I've set up a whole bunch of companies where I own them. These are companies, but they don't need my active engagement like all the time. In fact, whether I, spend a month just playing golf on my island or not, it doesn't make a difference to the business because it's probably set up. So it's a passive business. And now, if you set up a few like those, then yeah, you can. You can do whatever you want, and for me, it's all about what kind of purpose, what kind of higher purposes and impact you want to create in this world. Now, once you kind of get through this hustle and bustle of things, which I feel very fortunate, at a very early age, I could already do that. But then it's really about impact, and what kind of impact you want to have in the world.
yeah, I love it. I got the three things: profit, freedom, impact. You got to create the profit, right? Get the business running properly so you can have the freedom to make the impact.
Yeah,
No,
so
but the
I love
the
it, Rich.
impact's so important because that's the purpose, right? So I love it. I love having that purpose. And again, you need time to create that, right? And if your business owns you, if you're
Yeah,
serving it and it's not serving you, you can't
that's right.
help anybody. You're
Yeah.
just, you're stuck on that hamster wheel, So I love hearing about that. Well, let's get into that a little bit more then. Let's, cause I know you're focused on legacy now, and this is a really important topic that a lot of people misunderstand. I think they hear the word, they don't really understand it. There's not many people intentionally creating legacy. Okay. It's not in most people's, purview, if you will, right? It's kind of like, it's not in the game plan. Oh, and then I'll create legacy, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about like, first of all, like what it really means to you, like your actual definition of it, and then how you're going about to make this happen.
Yes. Well, thanks for asking the question, Richard. So I actually hosted an event in Florence, Italy, in November of last year, and I interviewed a business guy, and he actually gave me a definition which I had not heard about legacy, but I actually adopted in a sense. He said, an inheritance is something you leave to people. Legacy is something you leave within people. So the way I like to think about legacy is actually, it's not just on the material side. No, once you've accumulated some wealth, you've got a company, you want to leave it to your kids, you've got some assets, you've got some properties, you've got a stock portfolio. Actually, that's an inheritance if you transfer that over to the next generation, and you can set it up in trusts and foundations in order to kind of preserve it, whatever. But a legacy for me goes beyond the tangible into the intangible, which is what kind of values, what kind of goals, what kind of ideas and principles do you pass on to the next generations for a higher purpose. And so that's how I like to think about legacy. And so our story is very simple. I created a lot of companies. So on one hand side, I've just been buying properties, apartment complexes, commercial space, and hotels in the Rhine-Main area of Germany. So we own a lot of properties, which has developed into a family office where we do management and all kinds of stuff. And there's a team working on that. On the other side, I'm an expert on business development. So at the beginning of my career, I helped a lot of companies kind of, how to grow and scale and develop and go international. And at some point I said, well, you know what? I don't want to be a consultant. I'd rather do the private equity thing. And I just, buy companies or take over majority shares. So anyhow, these are kind of my two business realms that I've been working on. During the pandemic, 2020, kind of, I couldn't travel. We had a family crisis. My kids couldn't go to school. I've got three boys. My wife was going nuts. So anyhow, long story short, we overnight left Germany and moved to Mallorca, Spain, and really to kind of piece things back together. And that's when I officially also retired from operational work. So that's when I decided to hire in a few managers and reorganize my life. And that's when I really started to think more deeply on the theme of legacy. So we've accumulated a whole bunch of things. We've got all kinds of businesses. But we really don't know yet on how to structure it for the longevity. We don't, I've got 3 boys. How do I hand that over? How do I involve them in the business? My wife's also firmly embedded in our business. She's running on. So we've always been doing also family business together. And I've got a brother. We're doing a bunch of stuff together. So it's a lot of things. But I had no concept to how to develop a legacy in a sense. So one of my hobbies during that time was to learn and study Italian. So I speak Italian, and after a year of studying it, every day I took courses and lessons. Then I started studying art history. So I always wanted to do another kind of study. And then I started studying art history, and I became an expert on the Renaissance period. I'm just out of curiosity. And through that, I discovered the Medici family. I don't know, Richard, if you're familiar with the Medici family, but it's basically the Renaissance family. So in the 15th century, Cosimo de' Medici probably became the wealthiest person here in Europe, not coming out of nobility or royalty, but accumulating an incredible wealth. Anyhow, long story short, I became so fascinated about that family. So they were the great patrons of the art. They employed Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, all worked for the Medici family. If you've ever been to Florence, Italy, they basically construct the whole city. Every palazzo, the big cathedral, all that stuff comes from the Medici family. Anyhow, for my own legacy purposes, I just started studying that family and kind of the European history. And I just took a lot of lessons. And by now, I've actually written a book on Cosimo de' Medici. And the title of the book is Get Your House in Order, Success Principles Based on the Life of Cosimo de' Medici. He's the patriarch. And I just did this in a sense, as a deep dive, kind of learning from history. How do I set up myself? And that has kind of developed into, now we've created actually a Medici community where we're hosting business owners and entrepreneurs from around the world, where we're doing, a bunch of different things, but it's really a learning community. How do you work on your legacy? How do you set it up? How do you involve your kids? How do you have a marriage that doesn't fall apart while you're being successful in business? And so anyhow, I'm hosting that really because I feel like I'm not an expert on legacy yet. It's still up for the grasp if we actually create one, but I want to learn. It's a very fascinating topic to me.
Yeah, it really is. And I think about that with my kids. So I have 6 kids myself, and people always ask me, I'm on all these podcasts and you do all this stuff, and they say, well, what's your legacy? And they all think it's going to be whatever my business legacy is. I said, well, it's not business. I go, they'll come and go, those whatever. Mine's my family, like my children, and like what they're going to bring to the world, right? How they operate, the principles, all these things you're talking about, like what have I created? We homeschooled them all the way through school and everything else. We poured a lot of time into them, right? They've traveled. We've done all this stuff with them. And I'm like, and I tell people I had the opportunity to have my son. He's in the Marine Corps now, but he was home in January. We had an opportunity to do a podcast together as guests, and they basically interviewed him. Yeah. And I was like, he did most of the talking, but listening to that and him talking about from childhood to like, he's 20 now. And I looked at him like during the, I'm like, I'm just going to tell you, his name's D'Angelo. I go, D'Angelo, you are light years ahead of me at 20 years old than I was. Okay. I mean, I was a goof. Okay. I was in the Marine Corps, but like he's doing everything for the future. He's training. He talks about it so I can do that. And I'm like, I only did the thing to do the thing. There was no further thought past that. So he's really got this kind of legacy, strategic. Yeah, it really is. That's why I think about legacy, kind of like you do. I don't have the detail like that, but I'm looking at like really who did I raise? What are they going to be able to do in their own realm? It doesn't matter. They don't have to be the richest person. They don't have to be the biggest real estate owner or anything like that. Just like, who are they going to affect? Right. That's my thing. Who and how are they going to affect other people, their families and everything else? I kind of want that 3-generation outlook kind of thing, like whatever I do now is going to affect like for 3 generations, because what I did with my kids, so I'm totally with you. I really liked it. You've dialed it into your conferences and stuff like that, because man, you get anytime you get a bunch of entrepreneurs in a room, that's an exciting place to be. Okay. Cause the ideas are exchanging. Everyone's thinking it's that rising tide lifts all boats thing, but you come away energized from something like that, ready to get some stuff done. I love it.
100%, Rich. And I love that you're also thinking that through as a family. I mean, I've been involved always. We have a Christian background as a family, and my grandparents actually were missionaries in Africa. So I kind of grew up with this also, not just adventure in Africa, but also helping people, go to schools, visiting churches, setting up hospitals. My grandfather founded a university. So I've always also seen how, a human being can just make an incredible impact on other people's lives. So next to, business and making money and, employing people, also the impact you can have if you go on the nonprofit side. So we've always been involved in this kind of stuff. But the larger question then at some stage really is, how do you set it all up? I mean, once you've got a lot of stuff, balls in the air or plates spinning, how do you set it up? And so this is what I'm endlessly curious about. If it's not just one thing you're building out, but, that's where, again, I'm a very typical entrepreneur. I get bored very easily with one thing. So I want to create another thing, but I don't want the first one to drop. I want to keep it running. And so this is why things just accumulate over time. But then at some point, it's like, okay, so how it's a stewardship. It becomes almost like a stewardship question. So, for example, we set up now all the stuff that we do on our family foundation. Because for me, it's not anymore about just kind of, making another €1,000,000 in my bank account doesn't make any difference. So we kind of outside this game of just kind of increasing our net worth. We're really setting things up in proper structures kind of for the future and for impact.
Yeah, that's key, right? Like I said, a lot of people, Cris, they haven't reached that point. I'll go back to the point about the owner prison too. They're stuck in that business. Okay. And they can never get the bandwidth, the mind space to start thinking about what we just talked about, legacy and everything else. So again, I love that
Here's the thing, Richard, that it's also, I know some guys who have large companies. I'm thinking at the moment of a guy, a friend of mine, he's got about 500 people employed. And you would think if you have 500 people working for you, you'd find some people to take care of your shit. But he doesn't, okay? Somehow, the way he keeps his control and the way he runs it, it's like this guy is stressed out every time I meet him. And I'm like, man, dude, let me just help you. And as I said, I don't sell my consulting anymore, but I've created some now programs that we started hosting because really it's, you can be endlessly busy and just with a few simple processes and tools, you can really structure it in a good way where it kind of frees you up to create other things as well.
Yeah, but your point is you have to want to. Okay.
Yeah, it's a mindset. Yeah, and then it's a mind shift that needs to happen in order. Now a lot of people say they want that, but it's really also, entrepreneurs. We can also be addicted for adrenaline. So I would say that I'm actually a junkie like that as well. So if I don't have enough fires going on, then kind of I get nervous. I need to get that energy. Well, to set up a self-managing business is actually quite boring because it means that things are being done in procedures and with certain playbooks. Now, I work very closely with my brother, Philip. He's actually the one that helps me or has helped me a lot kind of structure some of these setups in order for them to be running without my interjection, because I can initiate, I can, pull things together, I can get the deal done, I can set it up, but then it really needs some boring work in order to make it sustainable and self-running.
Yeah, that's the key that people don't get. Even when I talk to owners and say, hey, we need to systemize this business, we're going to create this price. He's like, yep, they're all 100%, they're all for it. Say, well, let's get started. He goes, well, I'm not going to do it. I don't have the bandwidth to do that. Who's going to do that? So we work with the teams. We build it out because most owners, they're on to that other thing, or maybe they're out landing big clients or doing whatever, but they never seem to have the bandwidth to do the systemization of processing. And I think to your point, it's not exactly exciting. It's not glamorous work. Okay. But when it's done, it's done. And it changes the whole game. So,
and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's beautiful when you have
it. So would you agree? Kind of, you got to bring in the team to get the teams dialed in. Is that kind of the process? Like someone's got to do that work.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, there's someone needs to do the work, and so if it's not you get some people to do it. But it really starts, it starts with the head. If you as the owner, as the founder, don't understand what needs to be set up, it's not going to happen. So you need
Right.
to initiate it. So we
Yep.
actually, as part of what, how we want to have our influence and legacy grow is just by, helping some other families, kind of do that. So we've actually designed a whole coaching that we got where people can follow that. It's in a sense under our nonprofit. It's under our, like, hey, let's help others kind of set that up, because then you can go and create other things. Yeah, someone needs to initiate it.
Yeah, to me, it's always that education part. We talk, you can call it mindset shift or whatever. What it really is, you have to have understanding. Like I always tell people, like about marketing. Okay, you don't want me to market for you. I know a lot about marketing, so enough to like understand what's coming at me, so I can kind of sift out the BS, if you will. And I understand what works, doesn't work, but I'm not a marketer. Right. But I have enough knowledge where I can make confident decisions on moves and things. It's the same thing with the systemization and everything else. You got to learn what it is. You have to become a systems thinker. And then you understand, okay, we need to build this out. That needs to be fixed. We take the tactical and we turn it into strategic. That's how tactical are a little fire.
Well, a lot of entrepreneurs are addicted to the tactical.
Exactly.
And that's actually where you need to swap over to the strategic.
Right. Yeah. Really important. And guys, once they get it, it's great. But until then, they get addicted to fighting fires. They want the tactical. They want these issues.
A little bit like that. As I say, I confess. I thank God I very early on got the right kind of people to help me kind of put in the process and the procedures. Yeah.
Well, but here's the thing, Chris. Like, I love the tactical as well. Okay, I'm a hands-on guy. I like doing stuff, right? And there's nothing, that's a good trait to have. The problem is when you keep fighting the same fires, the same ones that keep popping up. You're like, you need to fix this permanently. There'll be plenty more. There'll be plenty more to work on. So what you do is you get one, you attack it, you solve the problem immediately. Now, why did this come up in the first place? Let's reverse engineer this. Where did this go wrong? Okay, build a system, fix that. Trust me, Monday, you're going to have 3 more problems to fix. Okay. And you can build systems around that. So I always let them know, because I see the pattern. So I'm like, you're fighting the same fires every time. And that's wrong, right? I get it. If you keep making the same mistake, well, you're kind of an idiot. Okay. So,
well, Richard, I was actually earlier today, I was on a call with a friend of mine who's part of our Medici community. And let me say, he built out a company, a technology company that 1 billion people use his technology. I'm not going to say which one it is, because I don't want to put him on the spot here. But literally, we were having this conversation. So it's been a few years since he's exited this company. He sold it. And so he made a very nice exit. Now, he's done a few entrepreneurial things since then. But we really had this 45-minute conversation earlier today on how he's still kind of at the core this entrepreneurial, let's build this thing out, even though he's gone through the phase of an exit, has a lot of money set up. And this next level of perhaps working differently, like perhaps thinking through leverage, not being so operational, delegating things away. Now, he was the CEO of the business, and in a sense, this is how he knew how to do it. And now he's really thinking through, well, how do I make this leap? And we had a beautiful conversation on that, and I'm helping him on that. But literally, this guy is you'd find his name immediately is very famous. But it's so it's not a blame. It's just we're all wired in a certain way on how we operate, and that actually makes us successful. So because I've been very hands-on, operational, probably like you as well, Richard, how you were describing, that's what has actually made me successful. Now, the reality, though, is that just because this has made me successful, for me to go further, I need to be operating differently. And that's where we all need help, so that because it doesn't come natural, and we've not really been prepared for that. So that's where actually, some outside thinking, some good friends, like some masterminds. I've created some masterminds where I take people with me on mountains. They pay 50 grand, just to spend a couple of days with me on a mountain. But really, I've seen revolutionized thinking, just because, we've all kind of are stuck in our rut.
Yeah, I think the problem is, whatever you go through and you hit that success level, there's a level of comfort there. You went through a lot of discomfort to get there, but now you kind of got the comfort. And then to do something completely new, to change your mindset, to build it different, end up with the same result, but do it completely different. Okay. So that's the challenge, right? That's the discomfort people don't really want to embrace. They're like, well, because if you just keep repeating the same thing you did, like you're saying, you can only go so far. Everything has a ceiling.
Yeah, no,
right?
Yeah, Richard, but here's one of the things that I discuss with business guys all the time. There's a huge, just because you knew how to become successful in business, for example, does not prepare you how to be a successful investor. So, there are guys who, they build a company and then they've sold it, they exited it. Another friend of mine just did an IPO and kind of climbed out. Now, just because he knew how to grow a company, now he's moving basically to the side of being an investor. Now he needs to think through. Now you can hand your money to UBS and let them manage your wealth, or like most guys do, they want to also, do some angel investing, do some VC stuff, do some private equity. Well, let me tell you, you've not been prepared for that as an entrepreneur, because it's a completely different skill set to be a builder than to be an investor. Now, but it sounds very similar, but I've seen a lot of money, a lot of millions flash down the toilet because successful entrepreneurs don't know how to be successful investors. So again, it's a different kind of skill set and training that you actually need in order to do that.
Yeah. And here's the thing, like you can do it if you get the training, you get the coaching, right? You've got to go through that process like anything else, but you need to do it like right away. Like you exited companies, like it's like you get a big pro athlete.
There's some great wealth managers and ways on how to do it passively. So I'm not discrediting that. I'm just saying that I've seen a lot of money kind of being missed because people overestimated what they could actually do. Just because they knew how to build it doesn't mean they know how to act as investors. Now, I've set up from scratch a whole family office where we're doing all kinds of investments. Now, and believe me, I've also paid for some stuff where I didn't do it right. And, I've got some heads now, thank God, on the real estate side, because we've got such a real estate powerhouse in the background. I've never lost a single dime on that. But on some of the other stuff, well, I really also needed to learn on how to put things together.
Yeah, very true. Like it's a complicated thing. It really is. And there's like the builder investor combination. Like you can be a business builder, scale, get those high numbers, exit, do all this stuff. But the investor, that's the mindset that this is from like the cash flow quadrant. I think Kiyosaki wrote that. But now you're the investor to the business owner, right? Now you're the money making money.
Yeah. Lots of things just boil down to very simple ways of, let's say, control. Like in a sense, when I was an entrepreneur, just I was a control freak, man. I wanted to know everything about everything and on how to do things. Now, as an investor, if you're a control freak, that's not pleasant for anyone. I mean, there's a level of controlling that needs to happen on your investments, but you need to give things space and some time and, set it up for anyhow. So there are different ways on how to do that.
Yeah, very much. But that's the point. Again, the big takeaway here is really understanding the difference of the two. And it's like I call them seasons, right? You get your business building season. You've done that. Now say you get a great exit. Well, what is the next season? Is it now investing? Is it nonprofits and investing in businesses? Is it family legacy? Are you going to start to build that? These are all seasons we go through. Right, I'm Marine Corps. I'm this.
Generally, there are a million different ways on how to create a legacy and how to be successful in business and how to invest. There are just a million different ways. So there's also not one formula. In fact, that's why I love to host the conversation. So we've created something. You can find it on medicilegacy.com, which is kind of basically we created a learning community where there's also some coaching available and that kind of stuff. But it's really a community for business guys to get together. And girls, not just guys, but we go and we spend some time, we learn from each other, and we think through personal development, relationship development, influence development, and business development, like really the different areas of all our lives. There's the business part, but then there's the personal part, there's the relational part, and the impact part. And we think through, just and learn from each other. And so for me, this is kind of the greatest joy at the moment, is that I'm hosting that internationally. We've got, I think, by now got more than 25 countries represented, people from all over. And so it's also different countries, different nationalities, but different industries. It's amazing how much you can learn, like from a different industry. We all
Right.
kind of grow up being successful in one thing, trying to be successful for some of us, trying to be successful. But then we almost get brainwashed in that field. And then actually to be speaking with people out of another industry, like it can just open up our worlds tremendously. So I'm having a lot of fun around that.
I'm with you, Cris, because as I coach all these different businesses, I'm learning about their industries.
Yes.
Right. I'm getting in the operations. We're doing all this stuff. And I'm like, and now I'm starting to go, well, I can apply that over here in construction. Okay. And I think there's medical stuff and I put it, and I'm like, okay, so I start to get additional tactics, right? And that's why you want to be around these different businesses, because it's still business, right? They just have to come up with different solutions for different things, but a lot of that stuff can cross over. So it's really important, like you get around groups like you've created, you get involved with that, man, that is going to accelerate your ability to run and build your business in ways you don't even imagine.
Yeah, Richard, I'm with you. As I say, I still feel like I'm on a learning quest myself. I haven't, to say you've mastered legacy creation and you'll be arrogant. I'm not. I'm trying to learn. And here's the thing. Some of my best friends are now all over the world. So they're not in my hometown. And a lot of business guys, you're in your hometown, your home state, and that's where you start your company, and you kind of always get around the same kind of people. There's a beautiful aspect of being locally rooted. So I'm not against that. But one of the lessons I took away from the Medici family in the 15th century, they already set up their banking empire all over Europe. They had bank branches in Italy and in France and Switzerland, all the way up to England and London. And that's actually what made them successful. So, such a legacy family. So one of the things that I like to do is really take people out of their context. We do stuff here in Europe, in different places, but also in the US. Like it's really fascinating once you get out of your own turf.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so important. I like that with my kids. We expose them to a lot of stuff. Even just in the U.S., we've been coast to coast, up and down. They've seen more by the time they're 12 than most people do in a lifetime. And it's just a good thing. It's just it gives them a different viewpoint, knowing that there is other things out there, right? It's just opening the the ability to be more creative and to learn and research and reach out for different solutions. Like you said, I love the local thing too. That's great. I coach on the national level, even international level. And that is the benefit. You're seeing different things in different states, and America's big, right? I'm talking people in Texas. I'm talking South Carolina. I'm talking in California. I'm all over the place, Arizona. So you've got all this different stuff, but you start to see the commonalities, but the applications are different, right? And that's what you take. Those are the takeaways. That's what you get and go, okay, like for me, I'm able to bring it in and then redirect it to a different client. So I really use it for leverage. So I'm getting a lot out of it as well.
So I use the concept of force multipliers. A force multiplier is something, I think some of the business guys talk about, most businesses, they try to slowly but surely grow their business, 10% growth, 20% growth, perhaps max. One of the things that, kind of this text thinking is if you really don't think about just kind of addition, but really kind of multiplication, how do you leverage that? That can most of the time only happen if you get some strategic force multipliers into your life or into your business. And that may be another company that just, takes your marketing to a whole nother level, or another distributor that basically opens up a whole country for you to distribute. So these are force multipliers. And so one of the exercises that I go through on a regular basis is just, okay, so if this is what we're trying to do, who would be the best 10 people in the world to help us kind of blow this thing up and take it to a whole nother level? And just that mental exercise can already lead your strategy into a direction where you totally can move your company to another level.
Yeah, I love that. And the word strategy, again, coming back around to that, that's because those connections don't happen overnight. Okay. You can locate them and you say, boy, it would be they could,
You
well,
need to develop that whole.
right. That's not a phone call, right? It's not a phone call. And it's like, so that's strategy though. That's understanding the long game. Oh, it's going to take me 18 months to build a relationship and get in there, maybe longer, but then, that's the force multiplier.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've got all kinds of examples around that, but because one of my strong backgrounds is real estate investing. At some point I figured, in my local market, I'm just one out of many, many, many guys who do real estate. But hey, if I fly across the world and I meet someone, I don't know, in Dallas, Texas, I may be the only one that they will ever know out of real estate in Frankfurt, Germany. So if they feel like they should invest in Europe and in Germany in real estate, well, guess who they're going to call? They're going to call me because I'm the only one they know. So anyhow, I've actually, in terms of investment, I've coached and helped a lot of guys kind of raise funds, and then they always ask me, kind of, how do you set that up? I said, one of the things is you need to get on a freaking airplane and just go to the other side of the world and start talking to people about your business, what you're building out. Because in your local turf, you're just a local guy, man, and they all know you, and and they see, they see. No, you need to cross some nations and go and meet some other people in some other rooms in order to have that conversation, and that may actually torpedo your business to a whole nother level.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, again, it's about, I always say, you should always be doing hard things, challenging yourself, getting yourself in those continuously. I tell them, you don't train 16 weeks for a marathon, run a marathon, then you don't do anything for 2 years. Like that's just one event. Like we gotta, and that traveling, going to other places, getting introduced is really amazing. I did that decades ago let's talk about Germany. So I'm into training dogs, right? Shepherds, Schutzens. Okay. So I'm doing Schutzen training, all this stuff, right?
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah. So I've got a dog from Germany. I'm like, well, I'm going to Germany. I'm going to buy dogs. I don't know anyone in Germany. I knew nobody in Germany, Chris. Okay. I bought a plane ticket. I'm flying into Frankfurt. I'm supposed to be going to Neustadt. That's what someone told me. Go to Neustadt. I'll tell you, you probably know the funny part. So here I go. I'm going to go buy a dog. I get on a plane. I land. I get there in Frankfurt. I go to the little guy and for the train. He asked where I'm going. I'm going to Neustadt. And he goes, which one? I go, what do you mean? He goes, there's 27 of them. And I went, oh, well, pick a nice one. That's what I told him. He sent me to Neustadt and the Weinstrasse, right? So Newtown on the Weinstrasse. I go, how could I go wrong? So I go there. I get off. I get off the train. There's a couple hours, whatever. And like, there's cabs. So I walk up. Of course, no one speaks English, and I'm like,
Richard, you're crazy.
So I'm giving her, I can't find it. I'm like, well, take me to so she gets a guy on the phone or the radio who speaks English. He owns a taxi company. His name's Bernd. And, so he's like, well, here, I'll have her take you to this bed and breakfast. And it's like $10 a night. You can go there. I'm like, okay, thank you. So I go there. I'll wrap this up. So I'm there, like, oh, this is cool. Now I come down, and this place called Wolfgang's. Okay. It's a little restaurant downstairs. So I go down with my Schutzen magazine, and I'm like, I go to him and I speak like no German, like a couple lines. So I'm like, Deutschland Schäferhund. Deutschland Schäferhund. He's like looking at the magazine, looking at me, he goes, hold on a second. And he goes and he gets on the phone, dials, starts talking to this guy, hands the phone to me. It's the taxi cab owner. He's like, hey, it's you. Okay. Yeah, I got all kinds of dog clubs. I'll be over there in 15 minutes. We'll have a drink. We'll talk about it. And I'll take you out. And like, I spent a week with this guy, found the right dog, got me back to Frankfurt. It's like, got back, sold the dog, please. Like, started that. That's me, right? That experience.
That's
unbelievable.
Sorry, I love that.
Yeah. You take me to winery. We're doing all this stuff. It was just amazing, just because I was too dumb to think you shouldn't do that. I'm just like, I'll go figure it out. I'll figure it out when I get there. So that was a good time. But that's
I even kind of this. I mean, you said about taking your kids and stuff. It's just so we always talk about formal education being so important. Hey, this informal education as an entrepreneur, just getting out into the market is just so important, and going to some other place and just having simple conversations. I mean, in real estate, the easiest way not to go wrong in real estate. Just talk to everyone. Talk to the real estate guys, talk to the agents, talk to the owners, talk to the people on the street, interview the neighbors, do all that stuff. You can do so much research just by, simple conversations.
Right. Yeah, it's so true. It's just, that's the fearlessness you need. You need that level of fearlessness. You got to be able to just go out and like be a little uncomfortable, make the contact. It's always about who you know, not what you know. You got to meet people. You know what I mean? You got to get out there. Any big leap I've had is because of someone I met. It's not something I read in a book. It's always that
force multiply. I've got over the years, I can even pinpoint it to very specific conversations I've had with people that really helped me, shape me into the person, the character of who I am today, is because they spoke some truth into my life.
I'm with you there 100%, man. Cris, this has been awesome. We've hit some good stuff. Really, really good stuff, man. I appreciate it. So,
I love what you're doing here.
You got some final words? Got some final words for the audience?
Well, if you're interested to be working on legacy as an entrepreneur, business owner, so the people that I deal with they own the companies, they own the businesses, and so if you're thinking about how to set up yourself, your family, and your business, kind of for the longevity, for legacy, I'd be very happy to be in touch. Our website is medicilegacy.com, medicilegacy.com. And that's where you find some information. There are my contact details. I'd love to be in touch. So we get all kinds of events and conferences as well as kind of my fun project to kind of be connecting with people and help on this. But we do a bunch of events in the US. We've got a whole bunch of cities where I'm speaking. And so I'd love to get in touch.
Oh, that'd be awesome. That would be awesome. Well, I just appreciate the time today. We just a ton of wisdom. I'm not even going to put it under the knowledge category. We're going one up. We're in the wisdom category. You dropped a lot of wisdom today, and I appreciate it.
You're very generous with your time as well here.
Well, this has been great. I can't wait for this to come out. So with that being said, again, thank you so much. And for everybody else, we'll see you on the next STS podcast. Thanks for tuning in to Sharpen the Spear podcast. If today's episode helped you think sharper, act smarter, or see new profit potential, do me a favor. Share it with a fellow home service owner and leave a quick review. Ready to find the profit hiding in your business? Head to sharpenthespearcoaching.com and book your free profit discovery call today. And until next time, keep sharpening.